speak slowly to give that, give one particular person. I didn't realise he'd gone out late. Yeah, without deviation and repetition, yeah. No, he won't be able to. But he can still ask a question. I think we may have to, we'll need to. Right, let's go. We've probably got people tuning in at this moment thinking we'd get finished because, you know, EastEnders is on in a few minutes. So they'll be desperate. So, we'll hand over Customer Experience Programme, item 8. And we've got, we're doubling up with Sarah and Corinne.
Would help if I got the first button right. So the purpose of the paper today is to update committee on the progress of the Customer Experience Programme and provide an outline for the principles for the customer journey mapping, which is a work stream as part of the Customer Experience Programme. So we are only at the procurement stage of this programme, so that means at this stage we don't have a detailed end-to-end implementation plan. We do have a detailed project plan that takes us through to contract award. Once we've awarded the contract, we'll move into the mobilisation stage with the supplier, in which we will start to work in more of a agile methodology, so and all the artefacts with sort of Scrum that goes alongside that, so things such as tracking our velocity of delivery of some of the tasks as part of that. At that point, as we enter mobilisation, we will re-baseline our plan of delivery based on what the supplier tells us as part of the procurement process, and start to have a clearer view of the services and therefore the processes that are likely to go into the customer experience platform in a specific order relating to the release of our benefits outlined in the business case. So the paper outlines the current position of the Customer Experience Programme with the target operating model workstream, the migration of forms workstream and the customer journey mapping workstream. You'll see those work streams are all currently green in status with nothing to raise. The customer experience platform specifically, we have now completed requirements gathering and we have now issued the standard selection criteria that has been published, and clarification questions are now coming in, and that has been done within the agreed timelines. You'll notice the customer experience platform has a amber rating, and that's due to the timeline against the business case implementation. So more is known about the procurement route that we're taking as part of procuring the piece of software, and you'll see in the report that we have 2 contract award dates that we are tracking. Now that's based on the level of negotiation that is required throughout that process. You'll see the earliest date where we may not need as much negotiation. We are heading for end of quarter 4 24-25, which is in line with a business case high-level implementation plan, with the latest date being quarter 1 25-26, mid-May, should we need greater negotiation. So we're tracking against two timelines at this point. We're not flagging any risks at this stage against that timeline to the benefits or implementation, because as soon as we award the contract, that's when we'll have a greater view of rebaselining our benefits that will be released as part of implementation alongside the supplier. So in relation to the customer journey mapping workstream within the report, we set out several principles of the way in which we plan to map the customer journeys and some of the outputs within there. You'll see we've recommended 3 service areas that we're targeting currently, and these are based on those that have high demand volumes as at current, and that is progressing to timeline. I'll pause there and hand over to the committee for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody got anything they would like to ask Paul?
Yeah, I would. As expected, Corinne, I've got a few questions. As you go towards building the project plan and you get your suppliers, potential suppliers engaged, you're going to have a lot of council officers spending an awful lot of time. Have you put steps in place to backfill that resource gap for the next few years? And if so, what sort of cost are we talking about?
So very timely. We were talking about that today. So I have just written a report that's due to go into CLT in the coming few weeks, which outlines the approach to actually seconding, if you like, resources from the service areas that will make up our Scrum team. What we have said at this point in time is we are not going to backfill because we've got an estimation of 3 days within, say, 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the length of each sprint. So we're not going to backfill directly at this point. Those resources will come from the service areas at specific points that help us with testing, with sign off, and that's going to CLT for decision.
Okay, thanks. I've got a couple of others as well. As you know, a number of local authorities have either started this journey as well or have completed it. Have we spoken to any of those businesses to find out what their lessons were and maybe get a few tips from them?
Yes, we have. So the way in which we approached that is we went through early market engagement, of which we started engaging with the suppliers. At that point, we had asked them for some sort of informal use cases, so some contacts that we could talk to. We spoke to several different authorities that have been on the journey, and we are also working with a supplier change network who have supported us through the ITT. As part of their scope, it was they gave us last week, the week before, they gave us a presentation on lessons learned from other authorities. There was things such as change management, so making sure we've got a change lead at the early stage of the project, which we have, and we've got a working group around change. Equally, comms representation and having them on board at the beginning of the project, and some other learnings that they took away was exactly the question that you asked in terms of pulling service representation into the Scrum teams that make up the delivery early on, and get that agreement early on, and making sure you ring fence them resources. So they were the biggest lessons learned from suppliers that we spoke to and other councils we spoke to.
If I can just add something to that as well. During this journey, we've also got a critical friend with us who's been through this journey from a local authority, because we know it might be a little bit bumpy. So hopefully we'll learn from their mistakes as well.
And my third one, which is an easy one, it's always very difficult. And I know you're doing customer journey mapping, but most of the software you're going to look at has got defined function. How are you going to manage the delta between the mapping of what we currently do and the functionality that comes with the standard software? Because obviously you don't want to modify that once you've selected it.
So one of the learnings I think we've had early on in the project is we went out with, and this was through talking to other councils, we went out with a view that actually we'll map our as is and we'll map our to be. And then we spoke to Change Network and we spoke to other councils, and they absolutely said, no, map your as is, do not touch your to be at this point in time, because your to be will be determined by the software and the technology. What that does mean is we're going to have a really concentrated effort on mapping the to be, but we have BA resource that we've secured as part of the Scrum team alongside someone from the transformation team who's doing sort of the service design aspect of it, and again they are 100% dedicated to the project, working with the service areas for the to be. So I think we would have wasted time if we'd done the as is and the to be, so that was one of the learnings that came out of the early market engagement, so really valuable exercise for us.
And then I'll just add a little bit more to that. We've also got a quite far forward change plan that actually links the as is to be with the gap analysis by the business analysts that will feed into a comms change and training plan for the end users.
Chairman, you've answered a lot of questions that I was going to ask actually, but which I'm pleased because I'm sure Paul put it far better than me. I was going to ask a question around savings to background here. We talk about savings 2.2, expected to deliver a minimum of 3.5 million savings by year 8, with our share being 1.6 million. I mean, can I ask where those figures came from? Because I don't know. Thank you.
So this is obviously the outline against the outline business case that came through Cabinet that was agreed. It is all based on people costs, so no costs coming from technology costs. The way in which they were estimated with some deep dives into service areas, looking at their processes and taking a percentage of time that's spent on manual processes that would be freed up if we were able to build them into things like end-to-end integration and automation, which would prevent the manual processing that happens at the moment. They were taken, so those figures are made up of excluding any sort of external funded roles, so that's not included. This is just the core establishment. And at this stage, we haven't said, 2 will be coming from this team and 2 from that team. We've just done an estimation. What we will refine as we go through, as we've been mapping out as is, we've been tracking effort and time to completion. When we do the 2B, that will tell us how much is exactly coming from each service area. So at the moment it's assigned to the level of roles within each service area that have manual intervention, and a percentage of those related on sort of email inputs, and where end-to-end integration will enable us to free up that resource.
Shane.
Thank you, Chair. This question is possibly a bit left field because obviously the weight of effort is through technology and through changing systems. But there are some people who are either without internet or without any kind of sort of linking, and therefore are not going to be compatible with that. I mean, I've got one resident, I think, who's waited a month for an acknowledgement, and so I'm just wondering, in terms of the customer journey, how much of this is incorporated for those people, and how does it look? How's the process going to work?
Thank you. So our strategy throughout the customer experience sort of business case and our objectives has been to always keep our channels open. So we are not closing down any channels as a result of this programme. So face-to-face will still be one that's available. I guess in terms of how we will continue to access those people sort of that don't have access to online sort of, technology, will be in exactly the same way that we do at the moment. But what that does mean is where those people that do have access to online technology and are confident in using online technology, we will make the process for them quicker and easier. Whereas for them at the moment, it may be an inconvenience having to call us via a telephone or come in face to face because they want to transact with us at 11 o'clock in the evening when we might not be open. So what we are trying to do is give the option to those people to be able to do that at a time that's convenient to them, which actually enables us to use the face-to-face channels and have that contact with the officers that we have that can do face-to-face appointments and see those people that don't have access to those online channels.
Thank you. And is that process going to be recorded nonetheless, sort of on the system?
Yes, so any contact via any of our customer contact channels will be recorded in the customer experience platform.
Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, on paper, the cost versus the savings look very attractive. Obviously, and it's crucial for the whole thing to work to the outline timetable in order to achieve those sort of figures or get anywhere close to them. Can I just ask, why does it take anywhere between 3 to 6 months to award the contract and appoint a supplier?
So that's determined on the contract negotiation and the amount of contract negotiation we will have to do. So we've got 2 dates that we're heading for. So one's Q4, if we don't have to do too much negotiation, and the other is Q1, if we have to do lots more negotiation. So there could be things that come back through the standard selection questionnaire that means actually we've only got a small amount of the market that's applied, and therefore we don't have to do as much negotiation. We may have the detail we need at that point. Contrary to that, we might not. And that's our opportunity and our window to be able to actually do more of that negotiation. I guess the procurement process that we have taken, because it's a complex, high risk project, that's the right route for us to take to learn more about what's possible in the market and define those requirements. So that's why there's such an open window.
And if I can just add to that, I've been on multi-billion-pound programmes before, and I've put in a timescale for supplier mobilisation, which is quite generous. And I think with a lot of suppliers that the team have gone out to, that mobilisation period may shorten. So we've been extra cautious just in case. But once we go down the evaluation route, we might be able to flex it a little bit.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yes, it's crucial for this whole thing to, if it is to work out, is to keep to those timetables. And obviously you've already made headway with the CJM part of the project, and you know, the sooner the contract award is actually done, the better. Where are we with it so far? Have you started that part at all or not, or are you waiting till we get into Q4 24-25 before you actually start it?
So I think I would say absolutely at the point at which we've awarded the contract and we have re-baselined the plan, it is absolutely crucial that we stick to time scales, and it's that impacts the financial benefits. You can look at it on the flip side, in the sense that depending on what we go through with the supplier, they may actually speed up the release of those benefits because their implementation plan may be more out of the box, and therefore we can pull in more processes than maybe we had assumed at the outline business case stage. So I think there's flexibility on both sides. It's hard to say at this point in time that's exactly where those benefits are going to land. So there will have to be an element of flexibility within it and rebaselining. In terms of have we started, so yes, there's quite a lot of work that has to go into it. So early market engagement itself is crucial to test your budget and make sure the budget we put in the business case is reliable and actually affordable for suppliers. And I'm pleased to say we got a lot of that feedback through the early market engagement, which is good. The early market engagement is also about us testing a lot of our assumptions before we go ahead and write any of our requirements. The requirements gathering stage, I think we've had over 30 hours of requirements gathering, so it's not been IT sitting in a dark room saying, actually, this is what the system needs to do. We have pulled more or less every single service area into workshops, and we've been guided with external support around that to get a real good understanding about what the system needs to deliver for us, and then having to prioritise those requirements, because we would all like the gold standard, but budget won't allow for gold standard, so we have to prioritise them based on what we must have, what we could have, or what we should have. So there's been a lot of work that's gone into that stage, and then it's the preparing of all of the documentation and getting the relevant sign-offs as part of that. And the first stage is, and I think it sort of outlines that in the report, the first stage is that standard supplier questionnaire, which has been published. There's then a time period that we have to have that published for, and we get clarification questions that come back. So it's quite a lengthy process where we have to meet several sort of gateways, which is why that takes some time.
Thank you. Adrian's next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I'm just a bit perplexed. So you've not mapped the customer journeys as in where you want to end up, and you haven't agreed the target operating model yet. So how do you know that the software and the system you select will give you the ability and the flexibility and the features you need to deliver some of those customer journeys? I'm a little bit, you surely must have some idea of where you want to be end state, because I can't see how otherwise I'd say you're not going to procure the right system, because you could select a system that doesn't allow you to achieve those end goals, which then links you to your savings. You can't realise your savings. And final comment, I'd actually say the 3 to 6 months is very quick. Working in BT, 3 to 6 months to get a contract award is quick. That's very quick. But yeah, that's just that question on that one, really.
Yeah, I think the mapping of the customer journeys is an interesting one. We could spend 2 years just sitting and mapping as is journeys, and in an ideal situation you would already have all of your journeys mapped as part of service areas. Unfortunately, we're not in that position where we can just pick up that documentation, and equally the moment you put some of that on paper, it's out of date as well, so there would be a need to review. So the requirements workshops that we have done have given us requirements that we can see commonality across all of the service areas, alongside the principles of customer experience platforms and what's out there in the market. We're not the first in the journey we're not the last. A lot of the software now can be out of the box with minimal customization. One of the core things we'll be looking for is how we can minimise build time and how we can use what's already out there to fit our customer journeys. So what you can get out of the box is extensive, and we will learn from other councils that have already been on this journey and already have some of those processes in place, which enable you to almost pick it up and just refine some of it. So I think we just had to get that balance right between the requirements and the core requirements, and spending a year, 2 years mapping every single journey and not actually putting the technology in place.
And then I'll just answer about the target operating model. So actually we do have a target operating model which defines FTE at the end state, otherwise you can't write a business case. And also the suppliers are very different from British Telecom and building a tower or anything like that. These people are very agile. They're very 21st century, they're not like BT, who have very, very, very long time scales. I put BT into Neeson Depot when I built it, so I understand that your frustrations with BT in particular. These are agile.
Our suppliers, not BT. Our suppliers are some of the biggest suppliers in the world, like vehicle.
The suppliers who we've engaged with early market engagement are incredibly agile. And as long as we can match their agility, then we can do it in 3 to 6 months. But we do have a target operating model.
I should just say for anybody who is listening, and there are other telephone service providers and internet providers available. As you may check them out, but I'm sure they're all as good as each other in their own different ways. Caroline, you want to be next?
We seem to be talking about improving the customer experience for a long time, ever since we moved into this building. I'm slightly concerned it's going to take, maybe at the worst case, to the Q1 25-26. And implementing the software, I'm not au fait with what all this software does, but are you convinced this will improve the customer experience? Presumably we're not going to have any increase in officers to answer queries. We're going to have the same amount of officers. So are you convinced that this software will actually improve our residents' experience with queries?
The customer experience programme is made up of, I guess, more than just the customer experience platform. So we currently track customer satisfaction on our website, of which we report to Cabinet on a strategic KPI. We know online is decreasing, so there's many factors to the customer experience. We are also running a project which is related to website navigation and the use of technology on there, which should, in the short term, start to see an increase in the customer satisfaction. We know lots of people are saying when they visit our website they can't find that information, so that's about the way in which we structure it and the way in which we use technology to present the answers that are needed. So that's one part of sort of customer experience that will improve in a shorter time scale than the multi-year programme or a multi-year project of customer experience that we're talking about today. In terms of the customer experience platform itself, we did with Scrutiny, we did a discovery phase in which we asked several questions with some of our residents. We sent a survey to them, which guided the principles that you saw come through in the business case. We are tracking customer satisfaction now as a baseline alongside other key indicators, and we will be tracking that all the way through implementation, right the way through to closure of the project and then the wider programme. All I can say is I feel comfortable that it will increase based on what we've got in place.
Thank you. Fran?
Just on the recommendations, recommendation 3, I mean, and in the report it talks about having an email update. Well, obviously email updates are useful, but I do think it'd be good to actually agree a formal milestones, so that people, actually did come back and give us an idea where we are, because this is far more productive for me and far more helpful than actually an email. So I think this is a much better forum really for us as a council and for me as an individual, to be frank. So I'd like to suggest it's a formal reporting milestone rather than an informal one. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd circle that here. Obviously, it says next milestone 2 is Q4 or Q1, which was what we've discussed. It would be, I think it would be nice to have something after that has been put in place. Just to, even if it's a much, obviously we don't need a full report, but it'd be nice to know where we are at that point. If there's some sort of briefing on that, we don't need the whole story again. But we would like to have those where we are on this journey, because now we've got some sort of map of something, and this is much clearer and provides a lot more information. So thank you for the work you put into this. But I think it would be nice if you, when you think, rather than just simply emailing us, even if it's a brief statement on where we're at with that, I think it would be useful, because I know you're before us on a number of occasions anyway. And perhaps we could tie it in with some other time, like we've done for this, when you are here, so that we're not making you come here just for the sake of it, because you could do a brief stint in front of us, if that's okay with you. Go on.
Chairman, just of process, the name badges in front of you are absolutely incorrect, and so anyone watching on screen will be thinking that we have a mic sitting here, perhaps, or whatever. So I just think perhaps we need to sort that out. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just thinking like a report on where you're up to at the end of Q1, and now and next would be really good.
So if we can tie that in with, at some point after this, when we've got something to report, we don't want to come back and say it was pretty much as we are and we just moved on 4 months or 5 months or whatever. But when you think there's some sort of milestone that we can have something reported on, and it can be coinciding with you not wasting lots of your valuable time to be here, I think that will be ideal. And perhaps we could think about that with regards to the work programme and how that can be slotted in. Thank you. Taking that we've made that sort of informed decision. Adrian, you want to say something?
Milestones. So what are the milestones? So I can't see anything here that says milestones 1, 2, 3, 4. What's a little bit? Well, it just says our next milestone is milestone 2 is a contract award, but is there must be a wider sort of high-level plan that shows all the different milestones, because that might help us with deciding when's the best time to come back, rather than
So yeah, our next milestone will be the contract award, at which point we will do mobilisation with the supplier. We'll get a clearer implementation plan. We'll then be into delivery. At the moment, I think I would probably suggest as part of delivery, we then come back quarterly as an ongoing update. But we can bring that back in the next, as part of bringing to you the contract award, we can then bring back some suggestions on next milestones for reporting for discussion in the same report, if that's helpful.
I think given that this is the sort of biggest ongoing project in terms of financial implications and implications for council taxpayers, what they will see from us as well. So I think, yeah, we're showing a degree of seriousness about the fact that this is something which we know is really important. So thank you. Are we happy to go ahead with the recommendations and with that caveat around the future reporting of things? All those in favour? Wonderful. Thank you ever so much for the effort you've gone into to update this. And again, thank you to Paul for all the feedback. I know there was no better that you've given in the process in the run up to this. Also directly to Sinead and me, which I appreciated. Because it made me sound like much more of an expert when I was talking to Corinne. Rodney, we move over to budget questions for Cabinet with Rodney Fincham, and he's brought his name with him. Wonderful.
Thank you. I wasn't going to bring my own name, but I thought, as you wanted to make sure I wasn't Mike, I thought I'd better do so. As you recall, you had your budget workshop back on the 15th of October. At that workshop, you came up with a number of suggested questions for Cabinet. After that meeting, I also had some further questions emailed to myself, which have now been added onto this list. So very much it's now for yourselves as the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to consider which questions you wish to ask of Cabinet. Thank you.
Does anybody wants to, obviously you heard your response, Caroline, but the viewers at home would not have heard that. Would you like to, do you want to?
How many questions can we ask, or why can't we ask all of them?
Yeah. Yes. You can ask them all.
Lacey.
We had a budget question for council tax for single person. That's obviously not relevant now, so that one can come out. So all but one would be my suggestion.
I mean, I know when I've spoken to Cabinet, and particularly spoke to Steve regarding something else, but his experience of being sat here means that he always felt that more questions should be asked, of particularly finance and round council tax, and he's keen to answer. I know that sometimes Steve's almost too keen to answer and to go into every small detail, and he won't mind me saying that. But he will. I don't think there's any resistance on his part to answering questions and to resolving any queries that anyone's got. If we're happy to go ahead, Lacey.
Yeah, it was question 6. Thanks, Paul. But given national insurance employers' implications for councils, is it worth adding that in or expanding on the question that asks about wage increases within the budget?
I think so.
Because I found out last week that parish councils are not exempt from the national insurance increases.
Is there any way of amending that question to make that make more sense in regards to what Lacey said?
I presume you're picking up question 8. If you want to suggest alternative wording for that, you're entitled to. But I think it is fairly encompassing to say about, it says a change to employers' national insurance contributions, which I think you take as read as the ones come from government. Can I just come back on question 6? This was about single person discount. Are you saying as a committee you'd like that one removed?
Yes. I suggested that I'm happy for that to come forward. That was what we were picking up in pre-budget stuff from Parliament.
So my view is that there's no harm in the scrutiny of this budget, and that a question like that, even if it's not, even if we don't think all of it is relevant, the answer might be, in this case, it's not particularly relevant, but this is the answer. You know, sometimes the answer is actually simply a no, you know, that sort of thing. So I don't think I've got no particular problem with any of the questions, but does anybody else? Emma.
I was just going to say, I wonder if question 6 is worth leaving in, because it might not be relevant now, but or yet might be a better word, but that doesn't mean that it might not become relevant down the line.
Are we happy then to say that we would like all the questions to be asked? Wonderful. All those in favour of asking all the questions? Steve will be delighted. He'll be genuinely delighted. You know, he does like to talk about his budget. So, you know, yeah. And yeah, we are blaming Caroline because she said it first. So, thank you, Rodney. That seems to be that we've dealt with your issue very swiftly. It must be the fastest item you've ever. Yeah. We move on to item number 10 then. Work programme. Sinead.
Yeah, nice and easy one, thank you, Chair. There's been no updates to the work programme since the last meeting. We are just awaiting a date for the return on investment for the Horizon building item, so I'll update you all once that's been confirmed. Obviously, out of this meeting, there's been a couple of updates to the work programme, which I will make after this meeting and circulate to everyone.
Jonathan, you want to say something?
Yeah, obviously, we've obviously just done this meeting, and then the next meeting is obviously the joint budget one. The 25th of March, where we've got the housing allocations policy, I think as a scrutiny committee, we should look at the temporary accommodation problem as a piece of work, because obviously we hear that all the time about the costs and the problems and everything, and I think we should have that brought in, because with the housing allocations policy, and bring it in so we've got more information on that, because it does seem to be that where we talk about that, you know, we've just got those extra properties which have saved from 1.1 million to 400,000, but it's still 400,000, and it doesn't seem to be going away, if you know what I mean. So I think there's a piece of work to do on temporary accommodation to give us a better understanding of the temporary accommodation. Just a thought, you know, because I just see that where we keep talking about it, it does seem to be that we are talking a lot, and just to scrutinise about how, you know, why the temporary accommodation thing is such a big, and it's a hot potato for every council, but just to give us an idea ourselves. Yeah. I just. Oh, sorry.
For all the viewers at home, can you submit a topic form for that? And so we can look into that, and we'd get a precise question and precise framing for the discussion over that. Thank you, John. Thank you, Sinead. Anything else anybody would like to ask in relation to that item? Okay, well, that item itself is just simply to note what Sinead has said, and we can close the meeting at, oh my word, look at the time. It's 8:33, and I realise it's Bake Off tonight, so I've already missed. Oh, luckily I've got Sky Plus it. Luckily,